So I am now recording this. We'll throw it on our YouTube channel. So for any residents who were not able to attend tonight, you can pass along to any of your neighbors or circulate the links if you're on any boards or anything like that. Feel free. It will be on YouTube by tomorrow or Friday. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bruce with the applicant's team, with the developers team, to explain their role and to go through the presentation that they've prepared. After that, we'll go to Q&A. There's not a ton of us tonight. There's only 16. So I'll ask that you use the raise hand function, which you should see under reactions. I'll just do a little example. You can see the little hand that's raised. It's under reactions, and then you can lower it. So if you raise your hand, I will call on you and you can ask your question out loud. You don't have to turn on your video if you don't want to. And if you don't want to ask your question out loud, we do have a chat function. You can type your question in the chat and I'll take either hands raised or questions in the chat. We're scheduled for an hour and a half, but we'll go into the questions run out. So if we conclude by 8, we'll conclude by 8. Otherwise, our hard deadline is 8:30. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bruce. Sorry, Bruce, are you there?
Look at that. Somehow I got myself muted. Sorry.
No worries.
Bruce Thomas with Ron Eastern Construction RECL. We're the construction manager that we're working for Richcraft on this project. And I just start out by introducing the members of our team and the members of Richcraft that are on the call. If you're looking at the list of participants, Kevin Yem is the Vice President of Development at Richcraft, and Vadim Sklar is their Senior Project Manager, are on the line. And from our team, Ron Derwin and Bruce Murphy are our field superintendents, senior field superintendents, who are currently already located in the small house on Lyndale, which is right adjacent to the site. And 2 members of our estimating group here, Scott Reed and Colin Thomas, are also on the line. So a number of the people you see on the participant list are part of our team. We have a relatively brief presentation of information, and I would say if you have a question, please ask it when it's pertinent. So whichever slide happens to be up, just put your hand up and we'll deal with it at that point. You don't need to save them for the end. Before I start into the presentation, I just ask Kevin, is there anything you want to add at the beginning before we start going through this?
Oh, no. Well, thanks, Bruce, for the opportunity, and hello, everyone. I don't have anything to kick this off, other than hopefully it's a great information session and people get the answers they need with regards to how the construction is going to move along. Okay, so
yeah, that's great. And as I click, oh, here we go. Okay, so first thing we wanted to do is just give you a basic overview of the project itself. As I introduced the team members, I already mentioned Kevin and Vadim. Rupinder Kaur is the senior project coordinator, and the only other person on our team that's not here tonight is Adam Machado, the senior project manager on the job, who had a previous engagement tonight. So we have talked about the team. I will say, as the construction manager and Richcraft's representative, we're going to be very, very accessible to the neighbors in terms of if you have any questions at any point during construction, you'll have the opportunity to reach us. I believe, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but our contact information is already on the door of the site office.
I might be a little ahead. Don't think I'm going to have it up till Monday.
Okay, well, it's headed that way, so you'll have a way of getting a hold of us. You can always reach me at head office, and we're more than happy to. As a matter of fact, I always make the commitment personally that I'm happy to meet any neighbor down at the job site beside the fence and explain the process about what's going on. We're going to keep the community well informed along the way, feeding information through the councillor's office on steps in the project and what's coming and what the neighbors can expect in terms of construction. So what we're building here, whoops, is a 31-story residential apartment unit, 279 units. There'll be 5.5 levels or 5 and a partial level of underground parking, also bicycle storage and lockers below grade. There's a small retail space on the ground floor at the corner of Parkdale and Lyndale, and there will be a rooftop pool and amenity spaces within the building. It's a relatively small footprint. I guess it's a similar development, you could say, to some of the ones that have gone on down the street, particularly Burgell is building not far away. So this is a picture of the site plan of the project. The laneway, the city laneway that's adjacent to the site between our site office on Lyndale and the project itself will serve as the access road into the project, into the parking garage access ramp and the 31-story tower. You can see you'll see when I get to the ground floor plan here, the layout of the ground floor. You can see the ramp, the retail spaces at the corner of Parkdale and Lyndale. There's the main lobby. There's also lobby entrance off of Lyndale. There are some townhomes units on the ground floor facing Parkdale. A relatively small footprint, but you can see the basic layout of the building. We get to a typical floor. It's a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. Pretty typical layout, floor after floor as we go up through the building. These are the elevations of the building. Again, like I said, it's a relatively small footprint. I think it's a reasonably elegant looking building that'll blend well into the neighborhood. So again, this PowerPoint presentation will be available through the councillor's office or directly from us for anybody who would like to have it as an ongoing basis. We'll be providing information on what we're building. Now, I want to deal with, because I think most importantly to most people here, is what's going to happen while we're building and what does construction look like. And first off, I just want to introduce our company, Ron Eastern Construction. We go by the acronym RECL. We were formerly Ron Engineering and Construction Eastern, so many people might know us and see us as Ron Engineering. We rebranded in 2014. We're an Ottawa-based company. We only work in the Ottawa area now. Founded in 1958, 60 years of experience. And in the last period of time, we've developed a significant portfolio of residential high-rise projects. Starting earlier in 2011 to 2013, we built, for Charlesford, we built the Merritt Condominium on Lisgar. And we recently just finished 1161 Heron Road, which is 2 16-story towers, 395 units across from Canadian Tire at Heron and Bank. Ron and Bruce were both on that project and have come over to do this one. Some of you and some people in the neighborhood would also see us down the street across from Farm Boy at McRae and Scott. We've just started construction on a 336 unit, 26-story building with a 4-story podium and townhouse levels. We're in excavation mode there. On Main Street at Tenno-Blais, we're building 6 and 8-story buildings for the regional group and 245 units. The first building will be ready for occupancy in November and the second one in April. And then on top of what we're actively doing and what we've recently finished, we have 5 more buildings in planning and development stages, 1,400 total units. And we anticipate that all of those units will be under construction by December of 2022. So we've developed a very deep base of construction knowledge related to apartment buildings, and our team that's on this project has lots of experience with it. So that's a little overview of who we are. And we are local, and our office is not far from here. Our head office is at Woodward Drive at Maitland and the Queensway, so we're not far from the job site. Now, with regard to construction, I'm going to turn this slide over to Ron Derwan just to run through some of the key elements of the construction process on site. So Ron, I'll turn this to you.
Good evening, everyone. So I've been hanging out in the neighborhood here for about a month and a half, and I've met quite a few people on the street, and everybody seems to have very many questions about how we're going to do it. So I'm glad that we're doing this. Hours of work, always an issue. The City of Ottawa noise bylaw mandates that in this area, we work from 7 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, Monday to Friday. And if we do want to work on Saturdays, Sundays, or statutory holidays, it's from 9 o'clock in the morning until 7 at night. So those we will be complying with. Now, I know right now the province has basically overridden the noise bylaws. I don't see us working outside of them. Right now, the province says that you can work from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. I don't see us working those hours. We will be complying with the City of Ottawa bylaw, as far as I can tell, except for extenuating circumstances, which only means that we've got a problem. So, site security, we're going to have a tower crane. There's always lights on the tower crane. The floodlights are for working hours. So we will keep the tower crane lights off after working hours. So basically, outside of the working hours, we will keep them off, except there will be one light that will be facing Parkdale, where there basically is no residential. We want to keep that one on for site security issues. So that will be the only one on. We will be setting up a security camera array around the site, and those will be on. They will be not pointing off the site. They will be pointing at the site to so that we can maintain security along our perimeter. So that will be there, and those will be recorded. Site information, our office is at 79 Lyndale. As Bruce mentioned before, I am in the process of getting a sign on the front door with contact information.
Hold it down. Hold it down.
We will have that up, and everyone's free to contact me at any time, the same as Bruce. I'm basically on the job all the time. So we will allow that. Site fencing, we'll go through that a little further on in the slides, but the site fencing, it'll be totally fenced in, including taking up some of the street, and we'll see that in a few sketches. Street maintenance, always when we have, especially during the excavation, there's always dirty trucks going in and out. The contractor responsible for that will be doing regular street maintenance to keep the streets clean. And that is just part of keeping everything safe around the site. And we will be doing that. Surrounding properties, we do not intend on encroaching upon any properties to the west, or to the east, sorry. We do need to encroach a little bit onto the property to the north. We have been in discussions with the property, and they're fully aware of what we're doing. Other than that, we hope to not have to encroach upon anyone's private property. Worker parking. In my time down here in Mechanicsville, I see you've got a parking problem. And I've been investigating it. There really is not much room for street parking anywhere. I will be recommending to all of our contractors that they deal with Indigo parking, or anybody that has private parking that they would like to rent. But we do not, RECL and Richcraft do not supply parking to the workers. They're responsible for obtaining their own. What I'd like to do is to point them in the right direction and let them arrange that. Vehicular traffic, we don't intend on closing any streets. We will be narrowing some streets where we've got a sketch a little further on the presentation that will deal with that, and I'll go into that in a little more detail. This will be, we do have to go 60 feet into the rock, and you do have rock right there below the surface. So this will be a blasting operation. Blasting operations will follow the City of Ottawa blasting bylaws. and the Ontario provincial standards requirements as referenced in the blasting bylaw. So at this time, some or all of you may have received a notice of blasting operations going to commence. I suspect we will not start blasting until sometime in September. You've already had blasting in the neighborhood with Brazil, so you are slightly aware of what happens. Yesterday, I ran into somebody from the neighborhood who asked if we were going to be blasting or hammering. And I assured them that we'd be blasting because hammering was far too intrusive and noisy for anybody to deal with, as anybody who has been living around here while Hydro Ottawa has been doing their work can attest to. I think that's all on this one, Bruce, if you want to move on to the next.
So I'll run through this, Ron, to give you a break for a minute. So our construction timelines, we're currently in a pre-construction mode and getting ready for construction. As Ron alluded to, Hydro has spent 4 to 6 weeks here chipping away a trench around down Lyndale and turning the corner and dealing with Parkdale. They're making some headway, or they're at the end of the process. We still have to go through an exercise with Bell and Rogers to relocate services to get them below grade. That's going to happen. That's imminent. And we're targeting starting with the clearing of the trees and stripping the site and getting ready for rock excavation late this month, early into September. Anticipate that operation going through to early spring of next year. At that point, we'll be starting the structure at the lowest level. The building structure is going to take a little over a year to construct. When we get 5 or 6 stories out of the ground, you'll start to see the building envelope or the windows and the cladding on the building starting to happen, and it will chase the structure up the building. Interior finishing scheduled to start middle of next year. Building system infrastructure will start almost at the same time, and then we'll be following up with building systems in the building. Landscaping work around the site to get ready for occupancy will happen in the summer of 2024 as soon as we clear winter, and we anticipate occupancy in the building in August of 2024. So give you an idea of the timelines that we're dealing with. Now I'll turn back to Ron because he's got a series of sketches detailing the activity around the sites, starting with the fencing layout and how pedestrian traffic is going to work around the site.
Right. So you can see where the construction site is here, and our little house office that we're in. The construction fence will go around there, and we're going to take a little bit of Lyndale. We're going to take a little bit of Parkdale. We have to make sure that we have a covered walkway. The setup on Parkdale will be very similar to what is happening down the road at Brazil. So that we'll look after. A couple nuances. The sidewalk on the north side of Lyndale from forward down towards Parkdale. There are no houses directly onto that sidewalk, so we felt that we were going to close that, because if people come down there, then they are stuck crossing over to the south side of Lyndale in the middle of the block. And so we would like to keep them safe crossing at an intersection. So we will have the pedestrian route come down there. You will come down when you hit Parkdale. There will still be a pedestrian refuge at the corner where you will safely be able to wait for the lights on the northeast corner. Where I wrote crossing guard as required, there will that is a gate into the site right at that corner. So during the time that that gate is in operation for any trucks, I want to make sure that we have a crossing guard as well as the lights. Most pedestrians don't understand the intricacies of construction traffic, and I want to make sure that we have somebody out there to protect pedestrians. The covered sidewalk will be lit inside. We will have some power to do that, as well as there is a light that is currently on the east side of Parkdale, which would be in the construction zone. The city lighting is going to move that to the west side of Parkdale temporarily, so that the street is well lit, continues to be well lit, even though we are covering part of the sidewalk. I think that's it for that one, Bruce.
So now we have the plan for when we are doing the shoring and excavation, the rock excavation, the blasting operation that we spoke about. So
yes, so shoring and excavation. There is very little shoring required because the surface of the rock is so close to the surface. We are going to have to put in there are a couple dips and dives in it where we're going to have to put it, but none of this will mean that we need to do tiebacks into the onto private property. This will all be done by drilling and coring and placing piles. So we will prevent any use onto private property. During the excavation through the site, and you can see here, I've labeled the construction vehicle entrance and the construction vehicle exit. Through both of those are the areas where I feel that we're going to need a crossing guard, just because people and construction vehicles don't mix well together. So we need somebody out there to look after the pedestrians. So we are going to supply that. During this time, and you can see that we are going to narrow Lyndale. We're going to take a meter of the sidewalk there, but we still will have two 3.5 meter wide, which are standard lanes of traffic on Lyndale. The same thing, we're taking a little more, I think it's 4 meters of Parkdale. So what will happen there is any parking that is along the west side of Parkdale, that will be removed, and we will move the traffic over. Still 2 full-size lanes of traffic, as well as the pedestrian walk. So we can keep the vehicle traffic going. Bruce, if you have anything to add, but nope. Otherwise, I think that's it.
So we move to the next phase is after the excavation's done and we start a concrete operation.
Right. So concrete operations can be very, especially when you've got a pour going on. The trucks are one right after another. The concrete trucks, they have to get in and out. Unfortunately, we cannot at that time do a drive-through site, because we will also have a concrete pump set up in that, somewhere in that yellow shaded area. At that time, we will be bringing the concrete trucks north on Parkdale and backing them in from the north side to the concrete pump. Again, very important that we have the proper signalmen and flagmen there to protect pedestrians and to stop vehicles when there are pedestrians around. So except for on pour days, we will still have a drive-through site. And that's very important to try and keep as much traffic as we can driving through. Very dangerous on a construction site with vehicles backing up. So again, construction deliveries will be scheduled. We do not want to have construction delivery vehicles lining up down the street. Absolutely, and the city does not want us to do that. We are very adamant that all deliveries are going to have to be scheduled, and we will bring them through, unload them, and send them away. So that is the plan as best as we see it at this time. Tower crane. We have not finalized our contract with a formwork contractor, but we have had some conversations, and that center of tower crane, while approximately, is pretty well, pretty close to where it's going to be. We have drawn a circle here, which is the approximate radius of the tower crane. This is a maximum radius. Depending upon the final location of the tower crane, it should shrink because it goes farther out than we need. But I wanted to include basically the maximum range that it would cover at this time. All hoisting with the tower crane will be done over the construction site. So basically, that no time will the tower crane be hoisting a load over private property. There will be times when we may have to close Lyndale because of hoisting over the street. And that usually is for about an hour. Actually, it lasts about 15 minutes, but it might be 4 times a day and once a week, 1 day a week. And that's just when we're changing some fly forms from floor to floor. We don't foresee having to do anything, stop any traffic on Parkdale. And if everything goes well, the only time the crane will be swinging over the private property surrounding is when it is not in use. And basically, the tower crane needs to be able to swing freely in the wind when it is not in use. It's called weather vaning. And so at the end of the day, they basically like putting the gearbox in neutral, and the jib of the crane will basically go with the wind, and that's to keep wind loads at a low point during windy days. I don't think I have anything else. I'm sure there's many questions.
So we arrive at that point. That was a brief walk through the logistics of construction, the team, the game plan, what we're building, what the timelines are. So the group as a whole here is the Richcraft people as well as our ACLs people are here to answer questions from the community. So Fiona, I'll turn it back to you, I guess, to moderate those questions.
Sure, thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation. So I don't have anything in the chat yet, and I don't see any raised hands. I'll give it a few minutes because I'm sure everyone's thinking of some very informative questions to be asked, and I'll wait for someone to ask a question. Okay, so Chris has asked the questions. Are these condos or rental?
They are all rental units.
All rental units, thank you. Okay, Fong, I'm going to ask you to unmute and ask your question, please.
How do you plan on closing that sidewalk on Lyndale? Is there barriers or?
Bruce, can you go back to the pedestrian one, please?
Yep.
So where the sidewalk is closed, it says sidewalk closed, there will be a sign, basically sidewalk closed with an arrow pointing to use across the street, and there will probably be a barrier. It's not something that that anybody can, I shouldn't say, it's not going to stop anybody that really wants to walk down there, but eventually they're going to run into a fence. It's basically what we are required to put on by the City of Ottawa to inform people that the sidewalk is closed. But again, that's about all it's going to be.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question from the chat, and then I have Paul's hand raised, so just give me 1 second. Question from the chat: at what point will the laneway be completely closed to use?
That is a bit dependent upon Bell and Rogers, but after my meetings today, it's looking like at the end of the month. I'm thinking around the 23rd, we will be putting a fence across on the north side of the laneway, and then putting the fence around the whole site, on not out where we have it, more on the sidewalk, but we'll be starting that closing off of the site, including the laneway. With optimistically, I'm looking at the 23rd. Realistically, it's probably the end of the month.
Great, thank you. So I have Paul's hand raised. So Paul, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, could you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, about the noise, definitely a problem. There was a lot of work going on at the Lyndale house today, digging, I think, a big trench through the rock, which prevents a real obstacle to work from home. So I guess you have to do this. I'm really keen to understand how the notification can help with that, so that it doesn't interrupt a mid-afternoon work from home meeting that you have to disappear from the house somehow.
So yeah, that's Hydro Ottawa. They have been working a lot harder than I thought they were going to have to work to bury some stuff. And actually the stuff at the Lyndale house is bringing a feed from 600 volt feed in for our temporary power for the construction site. So they almost got it today. I know there's going to be a little more jackhammering tomorrow morning, and that should be the end of theirs. But I had a meeting with Bell and Rogers, and they came to the conclusion that they may have to do some jackhammering down the lane to do some relocates of their lines, which is probably for the next, well, they haven't got a start date yet, but sometime in August that's going to be. That being said, our ECL are on the site. Once we do start, that we won't be doing jackhammering. There will be blasting. There will be some rock drilling going on, not nearly as loud and obnoxious as the jackhammering is. And every day or two, there will be a little boom while they blast an area of rock, and that will be it. It's far less intrusive audio on the audio side of it.
Okay, can I ask, how could we get notifications so we know this, so that if there's going to be a couple hours of jackhammering in the middle of the afternoon, that something can be done about it?
So Paul, what I would offer up is Ron and Bruce are in the, if you won't mind dropping over and introducing yourself and leaving us an email address, we'll be happy to inform anybody of our ongoing schedule of particularly noisy activities to send a notification out to the neighborhood so you have an idea of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Unfortunately, working with the utilities, they work on their own, but we do try to get an idea of what their work is for the next week so that we can work around it or with them. so we can pass that information on quite easily.
Yeah, so we can create a neighborhood distribution list and send a little blast out on a daily basis anytime there's going to be disruptive activity on the site and roughly the time it's going to happen, so you could plan around it.
Okay, that would be great. I recall the blasting that took place at the earlier this summer at the place next door. Sometimes it goes on for a morning or an afternoon. It wasn't like once a day. If that's going to happen, that would also be good to know.
Yep. No, I think it's very fair. And as I said, just stop and introduce yourself to Ron and Bruce, and they'll get your contact information. We'll keep you informed.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I have a question in the chat, and then I'll go to Dave. So how will the construction plan be communicated as the project progresses? Will residents be notified ahead of the time regarding more disruptive activities? So you guys were kind of just speaking about that. Maybe you can elaborate a bit.
So Fiona, when we did this a year ago for 320 McRae, we talked about finding a conduit to do that through. I'm happy to do it through the counselor's office if that's the way. I could do it through the Business Improvement Association. We could do it through the Homeowners Association. If we can get contact information from people that are interested, we'll create a little chat or a little newsletter to get out with scheduling information and look ahead information so people can plan around it.
So with 320 McRae, what I asked folks to do was, even if you are attending this meeting and I see your name and you tell me that you want contact information, please follow or communication about the development. Please follow up this meeting, email me specifically and say that you want to be on the distribution list, and then I will pass your contacts along with your permission. I can't pass along your email without direct permission. So there's some folks on here like Chris with the Mechanicsville Community Association. I would assume she wants the updates, but I need to get that email very specifically for me to pass that along.
Yeah, so let's just create some form of a distribution network, and we're happy to provide, look ahead schedules, weeks and months ahead, so that people, can think, far enough ahead to plan around whatever activities they're doing.
That's great. So if you want to be on that list, just shoot Jeff an email, jeff.leeper@ottawa.ca. I'll put that in the chat. Just because I myself, for those who don't know, my last day in Jeff's office is Friday. So send it to the general email address. They in the office or my replacement will follow this up and make sure that they get to the right folks. Okay, I have Dave's hand raised next.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious, in the top, I guess it would be the northeast corner of that, there's a little rectangle in the laneway. Is that like another structure, or what is that right where you're?
That is a ventilation shaft from the parking levels below. And that is let's see, is that the exhaust or is that the intake? I believe that's the exhaust.
But Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, this white line here where my arrow's running, is that a cover over the entrance to the parking garage?
No, it is not.
No? So this is sitting on top of what?
That is at grade on the parking because right there is also the entrance to the ramp going in.
Right.
So it's basically just like on the city streets where you see when you're walking down the city streets downtown and you see this big grate and there's a wind coming up or a suction going down, it's an intake or an exhaust from underground parking.
For those that are old enough, the Marilyn Monroe grate.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, Ron's the only one who laughs, so
I'm the only one old enough, Bruce.
Well, I have the mic. I just would like to plug in future developments in the neighborhood, 3-bedroom apartments, 4-bedroom apartments, like families. There's 31 stories going up here and not a single unit for a family with 2 kids. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Dave. And I think you know that Councillor Leeper shares that concern as well. And I'm sure that was a point of conversation during site plan as well. I don't have any questions in the chat. And I have Paul, your hand is still raised. I don't know. Okay, it's lowered.
No, I would be happy to ask another question if I can.
Please go ahead.
The house that you're using now for your, I guess, construction site.
Yes.
What happens to it in the long term?
I'm going to let Richcraft answer that because I don't own it.
Kevin, I think that's yours.
Yeah, I just unmuted myself so that hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yeah.
The house at 79 Lindale is basically just going to be used as our site office for now. Any future plans we have for it, we'll have to visit that in the future. It's an odd shaped parcel, so putting a standard home on there will be tricky. So don't be surprised if you see an application in the future for a minor variance to allow a single family home on that parcel. Even though you know one already exists, just if we do demolish that in the future, we'll have to come up with some sort of plan that fits and is compatible with the use we have now. But there's no current plan.
I will say, having spent a couple months in here now, it is a very interesting old house, and we've stripped a lot of it down to the bare bones, and it was well built.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I don't have any other hands raised, and I don't have anything in the chat. I'll give it a few seconds in case someone's typing anything. Paul, please go ahead.
Yes, me again.
Yeah.
About the parking, having been around there quite a bit, there's definitely the number of pickup trucks and the like around all the time is a bit of a problem. And there's also major construction going on the other side of Forward, which will aggravate that. Can you use tunnies? It's going to be half empty.
I think the challenge, well, I would say the challenge there is federal government land.
Yes.
I'm not sure we're going to be able to find anybody that would be willing to. It's a great idea and certainly something we'd poke around. I don't know if Ron, you've poked around, but being federal land, they're pretty reticent to renting it to people.
I see Bruce down the road that Brazil has managed to acquire a few parking spots and has actually got their site office across the street now on federal land, which I have no idea how they managed to swing. So I am going to look into it. Our greatest issue really is that until the excavation is done, the manpower on site will be minimal. It's machine operators. There's not a lot of general labor workers or carpenters or anything like that. When we are going to start coming out of the ground and needing all those people, and we will go from having 30 people to having 130 people on site, will be next summer. And I suspect by then Tunney's pasture will be back up and running. And now you mentioned the other construction on Forward. They are planning to go into the ground, and they have basically done their excavation and are going to start building up. I've been talking to McDonald Brothers, and they feel that about the time that we are going to have an influx of workers, they are going to be going down and getting towards the end of their big push. So they're going to do a lot of their stuff over the winter while we're digging. So we're optimistic that between the three large construction sites that are going on here, we won't be competing for parking spaces, or at least we'll be able to work it out. So that's kind of what we do. We have to find out. I am going to look into Tunney's pasture. I don't know who to go to there, but I'm going to go talk to the people at Brazil and see if they can point me in the right direction. And it's a great idea. And I did park there once this spring, and in an empty parking lot, I managed to get a $25 ticket. So,
okay, thank you for looking into it.
yeah.
Thank you. We do have another question in the chat. Are there any concerns with residents living next to the exhaust of the garage as far as air quality?
Oh, I'm not really qualified to answer that one. I think that's one that we'd have to push along to the consultants, Bruce.
Yeah, so Fiona, we'll take that offline and get a response back to you. I trust the building's been appropriately, the consultants have done their job, and there are a lot of studies that are done as part of the site plan application and building permit process that would address that to ensure that the exhaust doesn't affect the neighborhood. So, I mean, I'm pretty confident saying it won't, but we'll talk to the consultants and get possibly a more technical answer as to how they're dealing with it.
Okay.
This is Kevin from Richcraft. We had this question come up through the site plan process, and what we know is that the levels expected to come out of the garage are not to exceed anything that would be considered, you know, toxic or harmful. And I think I emailed Fong at the Parkdale Muse homeowners with some information with regards to the mechanical consultant's comments on how often the fan would run and you know, like how often it would run at peak times and things like that. So it's not to be thought of as something that's negative. There has to be a place for it eventually, and we don't anticipate it to be any problem from an environmental point of view whatsoever.
Yeah, it's Fong here. We have expressed sort of a distrust of it, I guess. It's not favorable. It's a concern for the owners directly adjacent of it. So if there's any additional information on the impact of it, then I'd like to receive it. Yeah, I've talked with Kevin on it, so we've discussed this as well. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thanks. So if anyone wants that information, they can shoot jeff.leeper@ottawa.ca an email, and I'll pass along, or their office will pass along the information that we get back. So I'll give it another few seconds. I don't have any hands raised, but maybe someone's thinking of a question. You can type it into the chat, or you can raise your hand. Like I said, this will be recorded and put on YouTube. If you want to be on that updates distribution list, send jeff.leeper@ottawa.ca your email address and ask to be put on that list. And then we'll pass along those emails to the team so that you can be on that list. I don't see anything else. No one's raising their hand. So unless we get something in the next 30 seconds, we're going to conclude this basically. Is there anyone from the developers team wants to say in closing?
So I'll just, Fiona, again reiterate that for the people in the neighborhood, Ron and Bruce Murphy are in the house next to the site. Please feel free to introduce yourself and ask any further questions you might have. We're there to make sure that we make this the best possible experience for everybody. And we'll provide all the information that we need to make people comfortable as possible. So feel free to reach out to us. We're in the customer service business, and we want to make sure everyone around here is knowledgeable about what we're doing.
That's great. Thank you so much. And of course, our office is here for you. Someone will be replacing me in my role, but my job to date has been dealing with, construction concerns. So if you've reached out to the applicants or to the developers team and contractor and you're not getting traction, or if for whatever reason you don't want to go to them directly, that our office is there for that as well. So you can reach out right now to jeff.leeper@ottawa.ca, but eventually it will be someone replacing me in that role who will be able to further assist you. So nothing else has come through. Thanks, Bruce and Richcraft and everyone from your team for coming and for the presentation. Thank you, residents, for all your questions. And we know that this is impactful. It's not ideal. Mechanicsville has seen a lot of large-scale construction in the last few years. We will do our best to get through it as painlessly as possible. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Fiona, for organizing this, and best of luck with your new opportunity next week.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.